and afraid, and also would sometimes withhold payment. They talk about kidnapping, arson. There's a litany of accusations in here. And again, it will be interesting to see what authorities say at this press conference. Remember, NBC News was first to report that over the summer a grand jury was hearing evidence from alleged accusers, and that also, remember, his homes were raided both in Florida and in California, and this was last spring. And, you know, at the time, NBC News reported that they seized cell phones, they seized guns. They talk about those guns, those AR-15s, with some of the serial numbers scratched off on them. And again, Combs, he's denying all of the accusations against him. And, you know, I just want to point out that damning video, the surveillance video of Sean Diddy Combs beating up Cassandra Cassie Ventura, his girlfriend at the time, who filed a sweeping civil suit against him last year, in which at the time he denied ever being possible to actually engage in physical violence. And then that surveillance video came out showing him beating up Cassie at a hotel in 2016, and he had to walk back his initial denial and then apologize, which he claimed was a one-off incident. But it's not a one-off incident, according to federal authorities, who claim that this behavior went on for years and that he uses businesses to allegedly hide his behavior for decades. Jose?
Yeah, and Lisa, you know, when one reads this this indictment, these 14 pages, I mean, I'm just wondering what stuck out to you as being the most significant one of all of these charges?
Jose, that's a very difficult question to answer, because on each and every one of these 14 pages, I think I gasped at the severity of the charges here. Mark Agnifilo, the attorney that Chloe was just referring to, said earlier today that his client is an imperfect person. But if a jury were to find that Sean Combs engaged in any one of these three charges, he'd be far beyond imperfect. He'd be a person that we would all agree was grotesque and a monster for engaging in some of these behaviors. I think what stood out to me is how long Sean Combs was able to conceal the alleged behavior here through a variety of coercive techniques that span the gamut from the use of guns, plying his victims with drugs with respect to those freak-offs that Chloe was referring to, the fact that there were commercial sex workers involved here that were allegedly trafficked both across state lines but also internationally, the fact that there is video evidence because Sean Combs allegedly videoed these freak-offs and used them to intimidate his victims, essentially saying, look at what I have against you. I have videotapes of you engaging in sex acts with commercial sex workers. And the other thing that really stands out to me here, Jose, is the involvement of a panoply of unnamed people in and around Sean Combs' life, whether as personal assistants or security personnel, people who are high-ranking executives in his businesses. There are a lot of people here who are and could be accountable for the way in which they facilitated this abuse and conspired with him to make it happen. Those people here, unless they are already cooperating with prosecutors, and there's a good chance that they have some of these people as witnesses, many of them could face their own criminal liability here. There are references, for example, to staff concealing and hiding some of Sean Combs' victims in either his residences or hotels because they were so physically injured that for them to have been seen publicly would have been risking disclosing what was really going on. They're also alleged to have reserved the sex workers, to have arranged in their transportation. This is an enterprise for a reason, because it took a whole lot more people other than just Sean Combs to make the abuse and the trafficking happen. And we should continue to watch to see who is participating in the U.S. Attorney's Office's investigation and who might even face some charges here alongside Sean Combs. There are a bunch of people here looking at this 14-page instrument who should be nervous across the city or perhaps in other locations like Los Angeles and Miami. Jose?
Yeah, and Lisa, I mean, and let me just go to the fourth point brought up on just page 2 of this indictment. It says, physical abuse by Sean Combs, the defendant, was recurrent and widely known on numerous occasions from at least in or about 2009 and continuing for years, Combs assaulted women by, among other things, striking, punching, dragging, throwing objects at, and kicking them. These assaults were at times witnessed by others, and then, of course, they include that Los Angeles hotel videotape of March of 2016. Lisa, this is, as you say, possibly involving a whole slew of people.
Absolutely. And I just want to be very clear about differentiating between witnessing conduct and being a part of an alleged criminal enterprise. Just simply being a bystander to this doesn't make somebody a participant in the criminal enterprise. But actively taking steps to conspire with the head of an enterprise is what's being alleged here, that these people, for example, at Sean Combs' encouragement and direction, did things like reserve hotel rooms, kidnap and conceal certain of his victims, obtain drugs and or IV fluids that were used to essentially sustain and rehydrate them after these freak-offs, which were, as Chloe described them, sex parties or sex marathons that in some cases lasted for days and imposed real physical injury and harm to some of the women who were involved, who were drugged throughout it. That takes the active participation, not just the knowledge and witnessing of other people. And so, as I said earlier, there must be a number of people in Sean Combs' life, whether they are personal assistants or security personnel, people who work at Bad Boy Entertainment or others of his businesses, that were directly involved here. And if they are not already cooperating with the feds, many people are probably having that conversation this morning with lawyers, including those that they have never met. I would imagine that there are a number of criminal defense attorneys across the city whose phones are ringing right now, Jose.
Yeah, and I mean, there's nothing party about these freak-offs. If this is, again, proven to be something that actually existed, and they may have existed over and over again. And, Lisa, the indictment also alleges that during these freak-offs, Combs distributed a variety of controlled substances to the victims, in part to keep the victims obedient and compliant. Sometimes unbeknownst to the victims, Combs kept videos. He filmed of the victims engaging in sex acts with commercial sex workers. With the reference to these videos that Combs apparently kept, what does it say about the potential evidence prosecutors have in their possession?
Well, we know, for example, that Combs' homes in both Los Angeles and Miami were raided last March. We can bet that among the evidence that prosecutors were able to obtain were some of these videos. Of course, prosecutors also have other video evidence in their possession that's referenced in this indictment, including that 2016 surveillance tape of Combs with his then-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, who sued him civilly last November. That incident is referenced in the indictment, but as you note, Jose, the fact that prosecutors are saying here that Combs often took videotapes of his victims engaged in sex acts with commercial sex workers means that they have a reason to put that in this instrument. They have reasonable cause to put that here, and that likely means that many of those videotapes are within their possession and could be shown to a jury if and when this case goes to trial, Jose.
As Lisa, there's also the issue here, as I'm looking at page 7 and 8, it says that members and associates of Combs Enterprises, including Combs security personnel, at times carried firearms. That in and of itself is not illegal. But in or about March 2024, during searches of Combs' residences in Miami and in Los Angeles, law enforcement seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 AR-15s with defaced serial numbers. What does that tell you? Because it isn't illegal. For example, I know that in the state of Florida, it is not illegal to possess ARs, but defaced serial numbers on them is.
Yeah, and the fact that these weapons were found in his possession proves to me that they are trying to elude or evade detection, that these weapons were likely purchased on a black market. And, you know, Jose, the very presence of guns in this indictment is something that differentiates it from some of sort of the other major sex predation, if not trafficking, cases that we've seen over the last few years. I'm thinking namely of Jeffrey Epstein and Harvey Weinstein. What differentiates some of this is the guns and the drugs in particular, but also how much more visible the presence of other staff is. You know, we know, for example, from both the Epstein and Weinstein situations, that there were people around both of them that facilitated them. And yet, for the most part, with the exception of Ghislaine Maxwell, most of those people were never held to account, criminally or otherwise. This is the Southern District of New York in stating that there was a criminal conspiracy here, making it absolutely transparent. This did not exist without the cooperation, active engagement, and participation of a whole host of others that they say were known and unknown to them. But the fact that they know who many of these people are, those people should be scared this morning, because either they're going to end up being witnesses at trial, or they may see their name on the other side of what we call the V, the verses in a criminal instrument.
Yeah, I mean, Lisa, on this issue of the weapons, back to the indictment, on more than one occasion, Combs himself carried or brandished firearms to intimidate and threaten others, including victims of and witnesses to his abuse. So, this is what is alleged in this indictment. I want to thank Chloe Melas for being with us. And Lisa, if you would, stay with us, because we're keeping our eyes also on the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, where officials are expected to give an update on these charges against Sean Combs. We'll bring you that as soon as it begins. But up next, the latest on the investigation into the second apparent assassination attempt of Donald Trump. Plus, what Vice Presidential candidate Tim Walz just said moments ago about what happened on the golf course. And breaking overseas, hundreds of people reportedly injured as wireless pagers explode across Lebanon. We're back in 90 seconds. You're watching Jose Díaz-Balart Reports on MSNBC.
I have co-authored a wellness textbook, which was the #1 bestseller. And I do about anything that I want to do. I still take care of my own lawn, and I go to the health club. We'll go 2-3 miles on the treadmill there. I've been taking Balance of Nature about 6 years. As long as I'm breathing the air, I'm going to be taking Balance of Nature.
Get 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Enjoy a 30-day money-back guarantee and free shipping. Use discount code LOVE.
Why use 10 buckets of water when you can use one fire extinguisher? And to fight heartburn, why take 10 antacids throughout the day when you can take one Prilosec? For easier heartburn relief, 1 beats 10. Prilosec OTC. 1 pill, 24 hours, 0 heartburn.
It won't be hard to find someone to fix this. But before I started Angie's List, different story. A lot has changed for us at Angie since then, but the issues facing homeowners are the same. And the solution too, skilled local pros. Get started at Angie.com.
Hi, I'm Eileen. I live in Vancouver, Washington, and I write mystery novels. As I was writing, I found that I just wasn't sharp, and that doesn't work when you're writing a mystery. And I knew I needed to do something. So I started taking Prevagen. I realized that I was much more clear, much sharper. I was remembering the details that I was supposed to. Prevagen keeps my brain working right.
Prevagen, at stores everywhere without a prescription.
15 past the hour. We turn to breaking news out of the Middle East. Just in the last couple of minutes, the Lebanese Red Cross says it is responding to multiple bombings across southern parts of the country. Lebanese health officials are now warning that the public avoid using handheld communication devices after the Iran-backed militia Hezbollah says pagers exploded throughout the country. Joining us now, NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez. He is in Tel Aviv this morning. Raf, what are we learning about this? And this was just more than one.